Ladies and gentlemen, the President-elect of the United States, Donald John Trump.
Under cloudy skies on Capitol Hill at 11:59 local time, one of the most extraordinary journeys in America's modern political history peaked with the swearing-in of a brash property tycoon and former reality TV star.
Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
In moments like these, the new president normally steps up to describe a hopeful vision of what lies ahead. But the time for hope seemed past, even as the rain began to fall.
Rusted out factories scattered like tombstones across the landscape of our nation. And the crime, and the gangs, and the drugs that have stolen too many lives and robbed our country of so much unrealized potential. This American carnage stops right here and stops right now.
As the former president gazed into middle distance, President Trump declared a new nationalist age in American politics.
We assembled here today are issuing a new decree to be heard in every city, in every foreign capital, and in every hall of power. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first. We will reinforce old alliances and form new ones and unite the civilized world against radical Islamic terrorism, which we will eradicate completely from the face of the earth. There should be no fear. We will be protected by God.
Just a week ago, President Trump tweeted that his former opponent, Hillary Clinton, was guilty as hell. But she turned out today and caught her breath, standing alongside her husband, President Bill Clinton, perhaps thinking of the 2.9 million extra people who voted for her rather than the man about to be president.
Hello. Hello, everybody.
Whether they like it or not, since lunchtime, he's held the codes and has control of America's nuclear triad, as well as 4,000 nuclear warheads.
We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And yes, together, we will make America great again. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you.
The hardline tone of this inauguration will have unsettled those who hoped for a softening, even a pivot toward unity and reason. But the revolution those who voted for Donald Trump wanted has begun. The age of Obama is past. The age of Trump already underway.
This was a stunning move. The shockwaves are still reverberating this morning.
It is such a defiance of the rule of law.
Are people going to suspect cover-up? Absolutely.
Comey was fired because of the Russians.
This is not a town easily shocked, even in the time of Trump, but the sacking of James Comey caught Washington unawares. Without warning, the towering figure of Director Comey at the helm of the investigation into Russian influence on last year's presidential election was fired by America's CEO, Donald Trump.
Why did you fire Director Comey? Why did you fire Director Comey?
Because he wasn't doing a good job, very simply. He was not doing a good job. The FBI has reopened.
That wasn't always Donald Trump's view. On the campaign trail, he cheered when Director Comey revived the case against his rival Hillary Clinton.
And it took guts for Director Comey to make the move that he made in light of the kind of opposition he had. He's become more famous than me.
After he took office, President Trump greeted Comey like a favorite son. But then Director Comey turned his focus toward investigating possible links between Russia and the Trump campaign, speaking just as boldly and openly as he had about Hillary Clinton's emails.
The FBI is investigating the Russian government's efforts to interfere in the 2016 presidential election. And that includes investigating the nature of any links between individuals associated with the Trump campaign and the Russian government, and whether there was any coordination between the campaign and Russia's efforts.
He refused to give cover to the president's false claims that President Obama wiretapped Trump Tower. The president called his investigation a total hoax, but couldn't make it go away. This morning, though, the vice president said this has nothing to do with that.
Russian official.
That's not what this was about. The president took strong and decisive leadership here to put the safety and security of the American people first.
So what were the reasons? The White House provided them in triplicate. The Deputy Attorney General cited Comey's original decision last July not to recommend charges against Hillary Clinton. I don't understand his refusal to accept the nearly universal judgment that he was mistaken. His boss, Attorney General Jeff Sessions, added, "I've concluded that a fresh start is needed at the leadership of the FBI." The president's letter to Director Comey sounded a little defensive. While I greatly appreciate you informing me on 3 separate occasions that I'm not under investigation, I nevertheless concur with the Department of Justice that you're not able to effectively lead the Bureau.
We are here to protect the American people.
Director Comey had travelled to the West Coast last night to speak at an FBI recruiting event in Hollywood. But would-be agents were left to watch a video celebrating career prospects at the Bureau, even as its sacked director headed for the airport to fly home. Late night at the White House, and communications staff scrambled in the dark to brief journalists on the dismissal.
Hold on, no, let's talk for a minute.
This morning on Capitol Hill, even some Republicans woke up with a political hangover.
Well, I'd like to see a fuller explanation of why the decision was made.
The White House's timing here was less than impeccable, and I think the president's selection of a new FBI director may be the most important selection he'll make while he's president.
While some Republicans were nervous, the Democrats were incandescent.
It defies logic that James Comey was fired because of how he handled the Clinton case. The president of the United States during the campaign led the cheers of lock her up.
History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And this moment in our nation's history has very much the feel of the Nixonian Saturday Night Massacre, when our democracy equally was at risk.
As for the White House insistence that this was Donald Trump recognizing a wrong done to Hillary Clinton, her campaign manager told me he's not buying it.
Donald Trump is not interested in helping Hillary Clinton, and the fact that that's the excuse he's giving for why he did this is just laughable.
It's clear the president is moving on. You've got to assume the messaging was deliberate. He met this morning in the Oval Office with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and the much-investigated other Sergei, Ambassador Sergei Kislyak.
Against the wall, please. I need room.
Back against the wall. Move aside. Move aside. When it comes to writing the history of President Donald Trump, this man is now guaranteed his own chapter. The previously unknown prosecutor, Rod Rosenstein, who the White House made a fall guy for the sacking of James Comey, yesterday pulled the rug from under the Oval Office. He chose to do what the president's opponents most wanted. Appoint special counsel to investigate what Donald Trump dismissively calls the Russia thing. And the special counsel he chose?
Director, if you would please rise.
All-round stand-up guy Robert Mueller. A spotless reputation, no axe to grind, and America's second longest-serving FBI director. Shortly after the appointment, the White House issued a sanguine statement attributed to the president, saying, "A thorough investigation will confirm what we already know. There was no collusion between my campaign and any foreign entity. I look forward to this matter concluding quickly." But this morning we found out what the president actually thinks, namely, this is the single greatest witch hunt of a politician in American history. Perhaps he was angered by the report from Reuters in which an anonymous official confirmed at least 18 contacts between his campaign team and Russia. Or he'd seen the Time cover, transforming his home and the symbol of American power into the Kremlin. But supporters of the president say there is one sense in which the appointment of a special counsel helps him.
I think on all sides there should be a level of confidence that a competent, professional, full job will be done, and let the chips fall where they may.
Well, yeah, it's always nice to have less drama.
Certainly Paul Ryan, Speaker of the House, spoke with a sense of relief today.
The appointment of the special counsel I think helps assure people that they're going to go do their jobs independently and thoroughly, which is what we've called for all along. And so I think it was perfectly appropriate to do that.
But it's tough to spin this into politics as usual when it's all so, well, swampy. And it gets murkier by the hour. The latest?
Can we ask you briefly about Russia?
Remember Mike Flynn, the national security advisor who had to resign? Sources quoted by the New York Times say Flynn told the campaign he was under federal investigation weeks before the inauguration, but they appointed him anyway. The truth was he was moonlighting but hadn't registered as a lobbyist for the Turkish president who visited Washington this week. Mike Pence, the vice president, insists he didn't know until months later, but he was the head of the transition team at the time. Flynn prompted another flurry around Washington today when it appeared he might refuse to hand over key documents to the Senate.
And that's not a surprise to the committee, but we'll figure out on General Flynn what the next step, if any, is.
As for the president, he's taking some distance. He begins his first major foreign trip tomorrow, his first destination, Saudi Arabia. There are bold hopes from his team for a reset, but in fact, in Trump world, just a respite would be a welcome change. Cool jazz on one of the hottest days of the year. It was a garden party for those whose denial of climate change and rejection of global deals had left them out in the cold for years. But their time had come. They perspired quietly as they waited for the president to announce America was walking away from the Paris Agreement.
In order to fulfill my solemn duty to protect America and its citizens, the United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord.
There were caveats that followed, even suggesting re-entry if a fairer deal for America could be done. But within the hour, France, Italy and Germany had said no way. The UK didn't sign on to that, but criticised the decision. That was just background noise, though, to those in the Rose Garden.
All of the Fortune 500 in America were against him. All of the world leaders were against him. His daughter was against him. Some of his advisors were all over the place. And he made a decision that I think was the right decision. A hard win, but he made it.
The president framed it as putting America first, prioritising jobs at home over an agreement that he says favours other nations at the expense of the United States.
We don't want other leaders and other countries laughing at us anymore, and they won't be. They won't be. I was elected to represent the citizens of Pittsburgh, not Paris.
But neither the citizens of Pittsburgh nor Paris appreciated his sentiment. The mayor of Pittsburgh joined a chorus of city and state leaders renewing their commitment to the agreement the president had just rejected.
This city does not support the initiatives that he is doing. This city is adamantly opposed to it. And for him to then use this city as his example of who he is elected to represent, he's not representing us at all, or not very well.
There was passion, too, from President Macron in Paris, inviting American scientists to take refuge in France.
Because wherever we live, whoever we are, we all share the same responsibility. Make our planet great again.
Donald Trump might not represent Paris, France, but he does Paris, Maryland. Here, Donald's Way intersects with Old Paris Road before you drive down to Chesapeake Bay. At the thrift shop, they were sweating over the president's decision.
You as an ally, France, you know, he's taken all of those people off. And why would you want to do something like that? You know, we're all friends. We've taken care of each other all these years, and then all of a sudden, he's trying to take us away from that.
People are going to be fighting for green energy no matter what. So we're trying to save money, and I think that's the way to go without having to pay, what, $100 billion to developing nations. I think we could use our $100 billion ourselves.
The Trump administration's already shaving billions from environmental programs at home. Funding for a major cleanup of Chesapeake Bay is at risk.
To have it not get that guarantee of keeping it clean and having water rise and having the acceleration in the climate change is very upsetting.
So even though it feels like a kind of global issue, it's also very much a local issue for you.
It's global and local, and there is nobody who is not going to be affected.
The view from Trump supporters is this is all turning out exactly as the president promised. But for others, this is not so much America first as America flying solo.
Now, the governor of Virginia in the U.S. has declared a state of emergency in Charlottesville as white supremacists gathering for a rally clashed with anti-fascist protesters.
For some, America's Civil War never really ended. In a state where freedom of speech is no less important than the right to openly carry an automatic assault rifle. An emboldened far-right gathering in the heart of Confederate Northern Virginia. Angry, this statue to a man they consider a war hero, General Lee, is being taken down and sold. The land it sits in, formerly Lee Park, renamed Emancipation Park. And now a battle zone in itself. Anti-fascists mobilizing in numbers. This might be a new America, but the divisions are centuries old.
You ain't no tough guy. You ain't no tough guy.
Barack Obama still hoisted as the poster child of unity, but where is the hope now? Does the Confederate flag mean freedom or slavery and oppression? When white nationalists hear their new president promising to make America great again.
This represents a turning point for the people of this country. We are determined to take our country back. We're going to fulfill the promises of Donald Trump. That's what we believed in. That's why we voted for Donald Trump, because he said he's going to take our country back, and that's what we got to do.
Take their country back from whom? The gays, the blacks, or just anyone who isn't like them. President Trump, his name invoked by racists, tweeted, "We all must be united and condemn all that hate stands for. There's no place for this kind of violence in America. Let's come together as one."
This event has been declared an unlawful assembly.
The police declared Emancipation Park an unlawful assembly as David Duke and another white supremacist live broadcast their own retreat from the back of a car, promising they'd be back.
I mean, I am so outraged that I'm going to make Charlottesville the center of the world. We are going to come back here so many times, it's going to make your head spin.
Last night, a far-right, torch-lit protest was eerily reminiscent of the Ku Klux Klan. Tonight, officials in Charlottesville have declared a state of emergency. The last 24 hours have provided scenes many in America thought they'd left behind.
No need for dog whistles. This was live, nationally telecast, direct from the president, who calls it like he sees it.
Well, I do think there's blame. Yes, I think there's blame on both sides. You look at both sides. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either.
There was venom and bitterness toward those who'd criticised his failure to disavow white supremacists directly after Charlottesville.
You will not replace us.
But it quickly became clear why he hadn't, because among these torch-bearing white folk, well, according to President Trump, there are fine people.
White lives matter! White lives matter!
And you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name.
That other name, Emancipation Park. Near that place where others saw clashes between provocateurs advocating a hateful ideology and people who would deny them, President Trump saw provocateurs with a permit and their violent disruptors.
What about the alt-left that came charging at the, as you say, the alt-right? Do they have any semblance of guilt? As far as I'm concerned, that was a horrible, horrible day. Wait a minute, I'm not finished. I'm not finished, fake news. You had a group on one side that was bad, and you had a group on the other side that was also very violent. And nobody wants to say that, but I'll say it right now.
Just outside on Fifth Avenue, the president's words thudded onto the sidewalk with explosive effect. We filmed these two men headed to their respective protest pens. President Trump's advocate had no words for us. He doesn't trust the media. But Norman Thomas stopped a while. What is it that you wanted to say to that young man?
Make America Great is code word for Make America White again. And people like me who's been here 8 generations don't have no place in this country anymore. And that's sad. And nobody seems to do anything about it. People are accepting it. And whatever crazy Donald Trump does, they make it normal. It's not normal.
So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history. You're changing culture.
The press conference descended into bad-tempered histrionics. The president's new chief of staff, General John Kelly, looking ever more intently at the floor as it proceeded. As he left, the president squeezed in a quick plug for his winery near Charlottesville.
I own actually one of the largest wineries in the United States. It's in Charlottesville.
Seasoned observers were left lifting their jaws from the floor.
I think what you saw today was that Donald Trump doesn't want to be managed. He doesn't want to be improved. He wants to be himself and unleash his inner sort of demons on the world, and he did it today. So it was shocking to watch. I've been following politics since I was 12 years old. I have never seen a public figure, let alone a president, utterly melt down the way Donald Trump did today.
As headlines denounced the president for giving comfort to racists, former KKK Grand Wizard David Duke, prominent in Charlottesville, thanked Donald Trump for his honesty and courage. In Charlottesville today, they're paying tribute to the honesty and courage of Heather Heyer, the 32-year-old protester mown down by a car allegedly driven by a white supremacist. Her father spoke movingly of the America she was fighting for.
She wanted to put down hate. And for my part, we just need to stop all this stuff and just forgive each other.
They tried to kill my child to shut her up. Well, guess what? You just magnified her.
Love, not hate.
She was remembered too on Fifth Avenue by her words and image. People there beat the drum for an America whose long arc of history bends toward justice.
Love, not hate. What makes America great?
But one elderly man told me his fear now was not that Donald Trump was elected despite his bigotry, rather because of it. The mayor of Phoenix had asked him not to come, fearing scenes just like this. After Charlottesville, he warned the president could again ignite racial tension. But this is the deliberately flash-bang presidency. And there were flashes of anger inside the hall as well as out.
The only people giving a platform to these hate groups is the media itself and the fake news. These are really, really dishonest people, and they're bad people. And I really think they don't like our country. I really believe that.
Before he began to speak, his supporters reclaimed the streets of Phoenix. They came in their thousands to stare down the haters.
For me, it was because they keep calling him racist, and I wouldn't vote for a man that was racist.
Bonnie and Eldon Hayes drove up from Tucson. They're both registered Democrats, but voted for Trump.
I mean, we're going backwards. 4 years, he's going to be out. Vote him out. It's so simple, but they're making all this ruckus over nothing. And, that's what democracy's about. Unless you want to be in a third world country where you're scared to say who you voted for, because that's what it's coming down to.
Supporters paraded by the protesters to get inside to hear the president. Like them, he said, he's a victim of a biased media, a corrupt establishment, and a destructive and militant political opposition. He couldn't stop talking about Charlottesville.
But I don't want to bore you with this, but it shows you how dishonest they are.
He brought along a copy of the statement he made on the day Heather Heyer was killed demonstrating against white supremacists.
Yeah, this is me speaking. We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence. That's me speaking on Saturday.
But he left something out. He actually said,
this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides. On many sides.
And that matters because that, together with his tirade in New York last week, suggested a moral equivalency between neo-Nazis and people protesting against them. President Trump didn't have to repeat it, though, because his supporters already believe it.
You're both carrying guns today. Why'd you bring your guns along tonight? Isn't this meant to be a peaceful protest?
Walking around with a gun is not causing violence. Walking around with a gun.
Doesn't it create conditions for escalation, potentially?
If you're bad people, then yeah. If you're a normal, regular, law-abiding citizen, it shouldn't bother you at all.
And where's the danger from?
Antifa, Black Lives Matter, terrorists, you name it, they're here.
Do they have reason to be worried?
Antifa is just a response to protecting the non-violent protesters, to act as that buffer between the non-violent and the neo-Nazis.
But if you're just being a buffer, why do you need to cover your face?
And I'm not about being identified, especially living in a red state where you can be actively attacked.
8 months into this presidency and the dividing line between those who support President Trump and those who oppose him couldn't be any clearer. Here they're shouting you're on the wrong side of history, but on that side they're saying they're making history. This is a new America.
Go back to Africa. Go back to Europe. Our movement is a movement built on love. It's love for fellow citizens.
But it's also a movement that divides on America's streets and on America's borders.
And we are building a wall on the southern border, which is absolutely necessary. Now, the obstructionist Democrats would like us not to do it, but believe me, we have to close down our government. We're building that wall.
Racists go home! Racists go home!
But the obstructionist Democrats aren't going anywhere.
We're in this for the long haul. We're not going to go quietly. Our attention's not going to be distracted. We're going to keep turning out, and we'll see on Election Day 2018 how things turn out.
The event is now closed. They are not allowing any more people inside.
As the night drew on and thousands of Trump supporters were turned away, it came to this. There were guns now on both sides. Left-wing vigilantes had joined the melee.
I'm just a bit unnerved by the fact that you've got a pistol on your hip.
That's there for your protection as well.
Thankfully, it wasn't gunfire, but a firecracker thrown by protesters that scattered the crowd. The police responded with pepper balls and tear gas at close range. Everyone quickly forced to disperse. Some lingered with stinging eyes to make a peaceful stand, but their gesture was all but lost in the heat of the night.
Dramatic news in Washington tonight as Donald Trump's former national security advisor, Michael Flynn, pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI about his contacts with Russian officials during the transition.
This was the humbling of Mike Flynn, once the president's senior-most security advisor, in court to enter a guilty plea on a charge that he lied to the FBI. The moment when the Trump lieutenant who led the cheers to lock her up turned out for his day in court.
Yes, that's right. Lock her up.
At the Republican convention before the election, Mike Flynn played chief cheerleader, urging Hillary Clinton should be imprisoned for her email misdeeds.
If I did a tenth of what she did, I would be in jail today.
He now faces a possible 5-year jail term himself, although it's unlikely he'll serve time because it seems he's done a deal with the FBI. But more on that in a moment. First, the charge. That Flynn lied when he told the FBI he hadn't asked the Russian ambassador, that's this guy, Sergei Kislyak, to delay or defeat a UN Security Council vote on a resolution condemning Israeli settlements. And he lied about another conversation a week later, asking the Russians to refrain from retaliating over sanctions imposed by the Obama administration. Then he lied again about the Russians telling him they would go easy. Anyone keen on puzzles might like to review a tweet from then President-elect Donald J. Trump the very next day, when he wrote, "Great move on delay by V. Putin. I always knew he was very smart." There's a lot of detail here, but you might like to sit down for the next bit. In the court, it was revealed that a person described as a very senior member of the Trump transition team, was involved in conversations before Flynn called Russia to get them to delay that UN Security Council resolution, and that someone in the presidential operation at Mar-a-Lago, described as a senior official, agreed Flynn should reach out to Russia and ask them not to ramp things up in response to sanctions. Therein lies the possible explanation of why Flynn lied in the first place. Perhaps he was protecting one of his higher-ups, but the FBI hasn't revealed who it might have been.
Clearly, they're trying to hide their contacts with Russia. What does that mean? What conclusions will that lead us to? I think the fact that we will now get his cooperation, at least Bob Mueller will help us answer some of those questions.
Can we ask you briefly about Russia? Mike Flynn's was always a controversial appointment. From the moment he joined the campaign, he came with a sense of drama and unpredictability, perhaps not the best attributes for a national security advisor. He's released a statement today to say his agreement to cooperate with the special counsel reflects a decision made in the best interests of his family and of his country.
Lock him up! Lock him up!
Whether it's in the best interest of his president, his once dear leader, is a question to which yet there's no answer. The White House stating that nothing about the guilty plea or the charge implicates anyone other than Mr. Flynn.
It's the investigation President Trump has been trying to make go away.
There's been absolutely no collusion, so we're very happy.
I did not collude with Russia, nor do I know of anyone else in the campaign who did so.
The whole Russian thing, that's a ruse. That's a ruse.
Special counsel Robert Mueller's inquiry into whether Russia interfered in the 2016 presidential election has produced several casualties in Donald Trump's top team. His former deputy campaign chairman, Rick Gates, has now agreed to cooperate with the inquiry after pleading guilty to financial fraud and lying to investigators. The plea deal means Mr. Gates could receive a lighter prison sentence in exchange for crucial evidence against his former boss, Paul Manafort, Mr. Trump's former campaign manager, as well as potentially other key presidential aides. The deal comes after Mr. Gates and Mr. Manafort had dozens of new charges of money laundering and bank fraud laid against them. They were initially charged last October with unregistered lobbying and conspiring to launder millions of dollars they earned while working on behalf of a pro-Russian Ukrainian political party. It's alleged Mr. Manafort paid high-profile European politicians to help secretly lobby for the Ukrainian party. He denies any wrongdoing.
Director, if you would please rise.
Mr. Gates' decision marks the fifth publicly known guilty plea in the special counsel probe. Other high-profile casualties are the president's former national security advisor, Michael Flynn, and George Papadopoulos, a foreign policy aide to Mr. Trump. They both pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI about their Russian connections. The president himself regularly takes to Twitter to insist there was no collusion.
How do we know you're telling the truth?
Because I have no reason to lie. I'm opening myself up for, possible danger.
So the storm finally breaks. Stephanie Clifford, a.k.a. Stormy Daniels, tearing up a gagging order and tearing into a president.
A world-renowned destination and a place to dream in the clouds.
July 2006, a golf tournament here in Lake Tahoe, California. The porn star and businesswoman Daniels, the Apprentice show host and businessman Trump, alone in a bedroom.
And you had sex with him?
Yes.
You were 27, he was 60. Were you physically attracted to him?
No.
Not at all?
No.
Did you want to have sex with him?
No. But I didn't say no. I'm not a victim. I'm not.
It was entirely consensual?
Oh, yes. Yes.
The president denies all, but the story now ramps up along familiar lines. For Trump and his lawyer, it's not the alleged calumny, stupid. It's the alleged cover-up. First the threats, claims Daniels.
I was in a parking lot going to a fitness class with my infant daughter. I was taking, the seats facing backwards in the back seat, diaper bag, getting all the stuff out. And a guy walked up on me and said to me, "Leave Trump alone, forget the story." And then he leaned around and looked at my daughter and said, "A beautiful little girl, it'd be a shame if something happened to her mom." And then he was gone.
And yet, Daniels signed a gagging order and denied any sexual encounter in the past. Why?
Why did you sign it?
Because they made it sound like I had no choice.
I mean, no one was putting a gun to your head.
Not physical violence, no.
You thought that there would be some sort of legal repercussion if you didn't sign it.
Correct. As a matter of fact, the exact sentence used was, they can make your life hell in many different ways.
They being?
I'm not exactly sure who they were.
Daniel's lawyer says because Trump never signed the gagging order, it has no legal force. Oh, yes, it does, says Team Trump, and you owe us $20 million for breaking it. It's come to this. A US president asked yesterday if he'd be watching a porn star on TV describing having sex with him. He left his first lady back in Florida. Returning to Washington, he woke up and, yes, he tweeted. So much fake news, never been more voluminous or more inaccurate. But Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen, is now under fire for getting Daniels to sign the gagging order just days before the US election and paying Daniels $130,000 to stay silent, which Cohen admits doing. And that, says the Daniels camp and many neutral observers, was illegal.
She has many more details and facts, much more to say, and we're going to get to the bottom of what happened here relating to the agreement, what Mr. Trump knew, and where this money came from.
Cohen insists it was a personal payment, nothing to do with the Trump campaign at all. Here's his lawyer.
That's to protect reputation, it's to protect family, and it's to protect business. That's what that payment is for.
But the Daniels camp is on an all-out assault upon the White House, posting images of Stormy Daniels taking a lie detector test in 2011. Then yesterday, Daniels' lawyer Michael Avenatti tweeting about his secret DVD he has, incriminating Trump text or video or sound recording. We know not.
He knows I'm telling the truth.
We do know, though, that this saga of secrecy and silence just keeps on getting noisier.
The Iran deal was one of the worst and most one-sided transactions the United States has ever entered into.
For those who signed it, this was a deal for the ages, a shared commitment to peace, to make the world safer. But in just 2 years, its greatest opponent has shredded the Iran nuclear treaty with his rhetoric, lambasting its inadequacies, bemoaning its conditions, using the full force of his power to tear it down.
Never, ever have I seen any transaction so incompetently negotiated as our deal with Iran.
Here's what the deal signed in July 2015 achieved: a reduction in the number of centrifuges from 19,000 to 5,000, a commitment not to enrich uranium for 15 years, a stockpile of uranium diminished by 98%, and a breakout time, that's the time it would take Tehran to build a bomb, slowed from a matter of months to 1 full year. But for President Trump, it was all an insult, a cash donation to Iran, a poorly monitored deal redundant because of time limits and abused by Tehran from the start.
We will not continue down a path whose predictable conclusion is more violence, more terror, and the very real threat of Iran's nuclear breakout.
Iran hawks John Bolton and Mike Pompeo now sit within the president's inner circle, with the White House prioritizing alliances with Saudi Arabia and Israel. It's already killed the deal. Now it's all about making funeral arrangements.
Oh, say, can you see?
Making Israel great again. The words of the Star-Spangled Banner more apposite than the Trumps might want.
And the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air.
The rockets' red glare and bombs bursting in air were over Gaza today. But at the embassy opening ceremony, they were listening not to gunfire, but to a recorded message from Washington.
On December 6, 2017, at my direction, the United States finally and officially recognized Jerusalem as the true capital of Israel. Today, we follow through on this recognition and open our embassy in the historic and sacred land of Jerusalem. And we're opening it many, many years ahead of schedule.
But unlike opening a Trump hotel, opening an embassy on disputed land has consequences. Good ones, according to the president's son-in-law.
the United States stands with Israel because we both believe in freedom. We stand together because we both believe in human rights.
In Ramallah earlier in the day, Palestinians marched in protest. Previous peace negotiations have acknowledged that they too have a legitimate claim to Jerusalem as their capital, and that Israel's occupation of East Jerusalem in 1967 was in breach of international law.
It means that the United States is becoming a participant in a war crime by accepting the annexation of land by force. It's becoming not only complicit, but a participant with Israeli violation of international law. It also means that the Americans are killing any possibility for them to play a role of a mediator by being totally biased to one side.
They carried keys, symbols of the houses Palestinians were forced to abandon when the State of Israel was founded 70 years ago today.
The fact that Trump would choose the day that Palestinians commemorate that loss to go ahead and open the American embassy in Jerusalem of all days that day, it just adds insult to injury.
Some youths threw stones at Israeli forces near the Calandia crossing and were met by tear gas, a faint echo of the carnage in Gaza. Near the embassy, Israeli and American enthusiasts were celebrating. Tell me why you want the embassy to be here in Jerusalem.
Because this is where it belongs, in the capital of the state of Israel. This is the ancient capital, and it's the political and correct capital.
Of the Palestinians as well.
What?
Of the Palestinians as well.
I don't know about the Palestinians, you know.
I voted for Trump. He promised that he was going to open the embassy here, and he did it.
It was left to Ivanka, the first daughter, to make the formal announcement of the opening of the new embassy.
On behalf of the 45th President of the United States of America, we welcome you officially and for the first time to the Embassy of the United States here in Jerusalem, the capital of Israel. Thank you.
Less like cutting a ribbon, more like lighting a fuse.
To your right, it's President Donald J. Trump who appears first in the portico. On the left, through the arches, you might recognize the rolling step of the rogue state chairman Kim Jong-un, about to achieve a moment of recognition that evaded both his father and grandfather. Behind the handshake no one could have predicted even a few months ago, but there it is. The stars and stripes folded against the Republic's red star, symbolizing communism and socialism. But this is no time for isms. As they move into the wings, they appear to chat. Kim has an observation to share. He tells his translator, who tells Trump, many people in the world will think this is fantasy, something from a science fiction movie. In all, it took just over a minute, as long as President Trump said it would take to know by touch and by feel whether Kim Jong-un is serious about getting rid of his nuclear weapons and signing a peace agreement.
This is what's happening. It is right there. It's within our reach. It's going to be there. It's going to happen. People thought this could never take place. It is now taking place.
The North Korean leader was bundled into his car with military precision this morning to begin the short drive to Sentosa. Ahead of him, President Trump was already on his way.
Yes, this is Donald Trump driving down. There's his convoy heading down towards Sentosa Island. An extraordinary moment. He wants the world to see a master deal maker, the kind of president who may divide America but might yet unite the Korean Peninsula.
Kim Jong-un pulled up to the hotel not wearing his glasses, but he was clear-sighted in his aims here. He was seeking legitimacy from the leader of the most powerful country on earth. And within a matter of minutes, it appeared he had it.
And it's my honor, and we will have a terrific relationship, I have no doubt.
President Trump sounded effusive, incredibly positive, already impressed, even though they just met. As he hears the translation of the president's words, the North Korean leader begins to smile with evident delight. As for his words, they're more soberly chosen. He speaks of the old prejudices and practices that served as obstacles to this way forward. But he says we overcame all of them, and here we are today. On to lunch, and the president turns on the Trump charm.
Getting a good picture of everybody so we look nice and handsome and thin.
Beautiful.
Perfect.
Handsome and thin, he demands from the photographers for the leader he once called short and fat. But that was then, and this is now.
역사적인 이 만남에서 지난 과거를 덮고 새로운 출발을 알리는 그 역사적인 문건에 서명을 하게 됩니다.
Today, we had a historic meeting and decided to leave the past behind, and we are about to sign a historic document. The world will see a major change.
They each signed with a flourish, but what's in the deal really? We're just waiting on Donald Trump to begin a press conference here. We're on Sentosa Island. Kim Jong-un has now left. There is a great deal of anticipation here, though, and a desire for more detail on this statement that both leaders have signed. I've got to say, on the surface, it seems very thin. It details a kind of a commitment to denuclearization. It talks about establishing new relations and a desire for peace. But there's absolutely no detail on how that's going to be achieved, nor is there any kind of time frame.
Destiny Pictures presents a story of opportunity.
But before there was any detail on the deal, there was this bizarre trailer for it, complete with dramatic orchestration and a Hollywood voiceover.
Will this leader choose to advance his country and be part of a new world? Will he shake the hand of peace? Featuring President Donald Trump and Chairman Kim Jong-un in a meeting to remake history.
That was a tape that we gave to Chairman Kim and his people. Captures what could be done. As an example, they have great beaches. You see that whenever they're exploding their cannons into the ocean, right? So I said, boy, look at that bridge. Wouldn't that make a great condo behind? Think of it from a real estate perspective. You have South Korea, you have China, and they own the land in the middle. How bad is that, right? It's great.
But before he builds the Pyongyang Trump Hotel, what about the tens of thousands of North Korean citizens checked into gulags they can never leave? What about Kim starving his own people and killing family members? Is it right that President Trump described him today as very talented?
Well, he is very talented. Anybody that takes over a situation like he did at 26 years of age and is able to run it and run it tough. I don't say he was nice, or I don't say anything about it. He ran it. Very few people at that age, you can take 1 out of 10,000 probably couldn't do it.
So what about the deal and the scarcity of detail on how denuclearization might happen? Why isn't that in the text?
Because there's no time. I'm here one day. We're together for many hours intensively, but the process is now going to take place. Great personality and very smart. Good conversation.
It sounded like the best review of a first date ever at the final photo op. One last moment to declare success before the hard work of making the deal a reality hits home.
An anonymous building in downtown El Paso, 325 Leon Street. Yet behind this door, the anguish of Donald Trump's zero tolerance etched on the faces of these immigrant parents. They've come from Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, the aim to start a better life. But now their only goal, to find the children forcibly taken away from them by US authorities.
El día que me lo separaron era como si me estaban arrancando mi corazón.
The first day they took him away, it was like somebody was ripping my heart out of my chest.
Now tagged and in legal limbo through an interpreter, Elise spoke of what she calls the cruelest moment enforcement officers took her son Edison away. It was his 6th birthday.
Llegó el oficial.
An agent came and he gave me the worst news of my life. He told me that you are considered a criminal and we are separating you from your child.
When your son was taken away from you, what did he say?
How was that moment?
Él inmediatamente me abrazó. Yo lo abracé.
He
Nos
hugged
pusimos a
me.
llorar juntos.
I hugged him. He told me he was going to hug me so hard so that they wouldn't be able to pull him away from me.
It's ironic that Iris is one of the lucky ones. She at least knows the US state where her child is being held, in Arizona, but she can't speak to him and is weeks away from seeing him at best. He and the images of children in caged pens wrapped in tin foil have become the flashpoint for Donald Trump's latest immigration crackdown, sparking national and international outrage. He's now rolled back the policy that forcibly separated children from their parents entering without authorization at the border. But the challenge of reuniting them has become a crisis all of its own.
No, pues me sentí muy destrozado, muy triste.
I felt destroyed, very sad. It was very hard when they separated me from my daughter. I'm afraid I'll never see her again.
Christian left Honduras with his 5-year-old daughter Christy on May the 27th. 17 days later, she was taken away at the border. Now she's housed somewhere in Chicago.
Do you honestly think there's a chance that you won't see your daughter again? And how do you live with that?
Significa lo mejor.
She's the best, the most important thing in my life. I'm desperate and the days are like years to me. I feel guilty because I made the mistake of coming here with her.
That's exactly how Donald Trump wants him to feel. The policy may have softened. Here at the army base of the inopportunely named Fort Bliss, they're building new camps to bring families together. But the president's tough rhetoric hasn't changed.
We want a system where when people come in illegally, they have to go out. We want strong borders and we want no crime. Strong borders, we want no crime.
But for many, it's the fear of crime that drives them here to seek protection and a better life. Like 24-year-old Mariana. In 2016, she fled Juarez just across the border in Mexico with her baby son Max. Despite pleading with authorities, she was detained and they were separated for 8 months.
Es un trauma que todavía no está superado.
It's a trauma that I still haven't gotten over. I'm not sure I'll ever overcome it. I'm still very afraid that one day they'll tell me, you have to go back to Juarez.
Even though she's now back with Max, the stories of the current crisis run deep.
Si yo sufría sabiendo que él estaba bien porque estaba con mi hermano.
I suffered even though I knew Max was fine. He was with my sister. But what must these mothers be going through? They don't even know where their children are, just that they're being detained. But they have no idea how they're being treated. I can't imagine what they're feeling.
How they're feeling is clear on the faces of Christian and Iris. Separated from their children, their lives reduced to a bunk bed and an ankle tag, in a country deeply divided about whether to welcome them as fellow citizens or not.
The high temple of democracy wrenched apart by what might have been an arcane and ritual appointment of a new Supreme Court judge, but instead became a hotbed of hatred and spite, released by a woman's decades-long hurt and a man's wounded honour. The wave of anger channeled on both sides of politics today reflects a tone set by Judge Kavanaugh when he entered the hearing room late yesterday.
This confirmation process has become a national disgrace. You have replaced advice and consent with search and destroy.
He is, he says, a victim of a conspiracy.
This whole 2-week effort has been a calculated and orchestrated political hit, fueled with apparent pent-up anger about President Trump and the 2016 election, revenge on behalf of the Clintons, and millions of dollars in money from outside left-wing opposition groups.
He says he's a man wrongly accused.
I am innocent of this charge. I intend no ill will to Dr. Ford and her family. The other night, Ashley and my daughter Liza said their prayers, and little Liza, all of 10 years old, said to Ashley, we should pray for the woman. It's a lot of wisdom from a 10-year-old. We mean no ill will.
Here's a judge abandoning judiciousness and neutrality for intemperate rage directed at the Democrats.
I will not be intimidated into withdrawing from this process. You've tried hard. You've given it your all. No one can question your effort. But your coordinated and well-funded effort to destroy my good name and destroy my family will not drive me out.
One wonders how his accuser, Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, might have been perceived had she displayed the same wounded belligerence. But she, the alleged victim, couldn't afford to be angry.
Brett and Mark came into the bedroom and locked the door behind them.
Have you ever been alone in a room with Dr. Ford and Mark Judge?
No.
He began running his hands over my body and grinding into me.
Have you ever ground or rubbed your genitals against Dr. Ford?
No.
Brett groped me and tried to take off my clothes.
Have you ever tried to remove her clothes?
No.
I tried to yell for help. When I did, Brett put his hand over my mouth to stop me from yelling.
Have you ever covered Dr. Ford's mouth with your hand?
No.
The Republican majority supporting Judge Kavanaugh argue there is no corroboration of Dr. Ford's story. But the Democrats say there could be if only the FBI were directed to interview those involved and cross-reference their stories.
Why would you resist that kind of investigation?
Surely, Senator Dick Durbin asserted, if you're innocent, Judge Kavanaugh, you would want those witnesses to be heard.
Judge Kavanaugh, will you support an FBI investigation right now?
I will do whatever the committee wants to.
Personally, do you think that's the best thing for us to do? You want to answer?
He did answer eventually, saying he always wanted a hearing.
You want this seat?
Senator Durbin's line of questioning wound another man into a state of high emotion, this time Senator Lindsey Graham, previously a detractor of President Trump's, but suddenly a White House favorite.
This is the most unethical sham since I've been in politics. And if you really wanted to know the truth, you sure as hell wouldn't have done what you've done to this guy. Are you a gang rapist?
No.
Phone calls to the National Sexual Assault Hotline increased by 147% during the hearing. A reminder, this is not only political but personal. A moment of American history, overflowing with shame, underwritten by rage, gilded by ambition. It began as a slogan the president could remember, to remind him to talk about immigration on the campaign trail. When his supporters took up the chant, he told them that Mexico would pay for the wall. But now he's declared a national emergency on the border to raid the congressional coffers to get the money he needs.
So I'm going to be signing a national emergency. It's been signed by other presidents. There's rarely been a problem. They sign it. Nobody cares. I guess they weren't very exciting. But nobody cares. They sign it for far less important things. We're talking about an invasion of our country with drugs, with human traffickers, with all types of criminals and gangs.
Since 1976, when Congress passed the National Emergencies Act, presidents have declared at least 58 states of emergency, not counting disaster declarations for weather events. George W. Bush racked up 12, President Obama 13, President Trump is reaching 4. 31 remain in force today as presidents routinely extend those already in place. The declarations in themselves aren't unusual. In the main, they're used to impose sanctions on a foreign power or to seize property. But this is something special. It's the first time a president has declared an emergency to seize money for a campaign promise that Congress has refused to fund. And that leaves his move open to legal challenges, that this is an emergency of politics, not of national security.
And we will have a national emergency, and we will then be sued, and they will sue us in the Ninth Circuit, even though it shouldn't be there. And we will possibly get a bad ruling, and then we'll get another bad ruling, and then we'll end up in the Supreme Court.
A bipartisan deal in Congress overnight to avoid another government shutdown greenlit more than $1.3 billion for a wall. But the president says he's declaring the emergency because that's simply not enough. He responded angrily when asked whether there is really an emergency on the border.
You are presenting information about what's happening at the border, calling it an invasion, talking about women with duct tape over their mouths and so on. And yet there's a lot of Department of Homeland Security data out there that shows border crossings at a near record low. That shows undocumented immigrants committing crime at lower levels.
I cannot stay silent on the president's threat to declare a national emergency to pay for his boondoggle of a border wall. This lawless end run around Congress is a craven act built on lies and distraction.
There are Republican opponents in Congress too, not only to the wall, but to presidential overreach. But they'll likely be quiet on Trump's border emergency, caught in the undertow of a president on whom they depend for their power, even as he undermines theirs.
Now, Donald Trump has confounded his critics. Once again, as special counsel Robert Mueller found there was no evidence that the president had conspired with Russia over his 2016 election.
After the Attorney General's intervention, his was a regal swagger. Exultant and exonerated, the president could only but declare his love for the nation he leads.
I just want to tell you that America is the greatest place on earth. The greatest place on earth. Thank you very much.
In failing to mortally wound President Trump, the Mueller report has only empowered him. Yesterday evening, there was vengeance too.
This was an illegal takedown that failed. And hopefully somebody's going to be looking at the other side. So it's complete exoneration, no collusion, no obstruction.
We only know what we know of the Mueller report through this man, the president's gatekeeper, Attorney General Bill Barr. In the 4-page summary he yesterday presented to Congress, there were two key messages. Firstly, that the special counsel's investigation did not find that the Trump campaign or anyone associated with it conspired or coordinated with Russia in its efforts to influence the 2016 US presidential election. And secondly, on the issue of obstruction of justice, Mueller had surmised, while this report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him. But the Attorney General went further. On the basis he said that there was no conspiracy, he concluded there was no cover-up either. And that has the Democrats worried.
The president has not been exonerated by the special counsel, yet the Attorney General has decided not to go further or apparently to share those findings with the public. We cannot simply rely on what may be a hasty, partisan interpretation of the facts.
But on Capitol Hill today, the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee and Trump loyalist Lindsey Graham defended the role of the Attorney General in declaring the president hadn't obstructed justice.
Mr. Mueller apparently could not find sufficient evidence to conclude on his own that the president obstructed justice in a classic sense. And Mr. Barr said, having looked at the evidence, we do not believe there is evidence to support a charge of obstruction of justice.
But the Democrats aren't taking Lindsey Graham or indeed Bill Barr's word for it. They plan to call the Attorney General to testify before Congress and continue to demand the report be released to the public in full.
Just because he claims a total exoneration, which we already know is not true, but par for the course, that this is all about him with the president. What's next is that these kind of investigations must continue unfettered.
The White House insists Democrats are delusional and should be chastened by chasing conspiracy theories.
It was a false narrative. It was a terrible thing. We can never let this happen to another president again. I can tell you that. I say it very strongly. Very few people I know could have handled it. We can never, ever let this happen to another president again. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Justice Department has appointed special counsel.
Season after season, indictment after indictment.
Friday's indictment charged 13 Russian nationals.
It's hung heavy in the air for almost an entire presidency.
There was no collusion, there was no obstruction, everybody knows it.
23 months, more than 2,000 subpoenas.
It's the first Trump campaign advisor to be arrested.
500 search warrants. Today, the Mueller report, redacted, but released.
I can tell you I have it. It says, report on the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election.
As an entire nation began speed reading, the president, holding an event for veterans, gave his quickfire verdict.
I'm having a good day, too. It was called No Collusion, No Obstruction. This hoax that should never happen to another president again.
But what did he think back in May 2017 when then Attorney General Jeff Sessions told him a special counsel had been appointed? The report cites as submitted evidence a note from one aide saying he slumped back in his chair and said, "Oh my God, this is terrible. This is the end of my presidency. I'm..." The following month, we learn President Trump told his White House counsel Don McGahn to remove Mueller. McGahn did not carry out the direction, however, deciding that he would resign rather than trigger what he regarded as a potential Saturday night massacre. A Watergate reference. Richard Nixon eventually managed to get the independent prosecutor investigating him fired, but as we know, that didn't end well. One man President Trump did fire, FBI Director James Comey. The report concludes the president had the authority to remove him, but also that there's substantial evidence he did so because of Mr. Comey's unwillingness to publicly state the president was not personally under investigation. In all, Mueller detailed 10 episodes involving actions by the president that might have constituted obstruction, but the evidence we obtained about the president's actions and intent presents difficult issues that prevent us from conclusively determining that no criminal conduct occurred. Accordingly, while this report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him. The Attorney General, Bill Barr, who held a press conference 2 hours before the report was even released, concluded he had non-corrupt motives and no case for obstruction.
Don't you think it creates an appearance of impropriety for you to come out and sort of what appears to be sort of spinning the report before the public gets a chance to read it?
He reminded the room he didn't have to release the Mueller report publicly. He chose to do so.
Ma'am, was that the report? Was that the Mueller report, ma'am? Was that the Mueller report, ma'am?
Lawmakers on Capitol Hill received their much-anticipated copies on CDs. Everyone in Washington may be talking about it, but today no one has heard the voice of Robert Mueller. Through the whole process, he's remained quiet, save for the odd commencement address early on.
As the saying goes, if you have integrity, nothing else matters. And if you do not have integrity, nothing else matters.
Now, the Democrat-controlled House Judiciary Committee has sent a letter to Special Counsel Mueller to testify himself, under oath on the Hill, by the end of next month. Until then, in the days and weeks ahead, details will be poured over, connections made, redactions held up to the light.
The president is no longer in the legal crosshairs.
They didn't exonerate him because the evidence didn't suggest he should be exonerated.
Fights over what the document does and doesn't mean will carry on for far longer, well into the 2020 election campaign. Yes, this is a moment, a big one at that, but it is by no means the season finale of Donald Trump's reality drama, no matter what pre-prepared memes he tweets.
Now, Donald Trump has again denied that his racist tweets are racist, but the president seems to be uniting the Democratic Party with his attack on the 4 radical congresswomen known as the Squad, as he repeats his calls on them to go back to the crime-infested places from which they came.
He does not know how to defend his policies, so what he does is attack us personally.
The 4 non-white recipients of Donald Trump's relentless onslaught had no hesitation what to call it.
Xenophobic, bigoted remarks from the occupant of our White House.
This is the agenda of white nationalists.
These Democratic congresswomen calling out the president's "go back to your country's" comments after he stepped up his attack.
These are people that, in my opinion, hate our country. If you're not happy here, you can leave.
He claimed on Twitter today, not for the first time, that he doesn't have a racist bone in his body.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best.
So does America have a racist president? He announced his candidacy, remember, with these remarks on Mexicans.
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
repeatedly questioned the birthplace of the nation's first black president.
It's one of the greatest scams in the history of politics and in the history period. You are not allowed to be a president if you're not born in this country. He may not have been born in this country.
And after white nationalists and counter-protesters fought in Charlottesville, a young woman killed by a neo-Nazi, Donald Trump, by then president, condemned and praised both sides.
And you had some very bad people in that group, but you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
Racism, Republican leadership in the House of Representatives brushed it off.
Were the president's tweets that said "go back" racist?
No. The party more resolutely behind Donald Trump now more than ever. Very few among them have spoken out. It's a question the media has had to answer too. CNN, unequivocal.
There's no other way. If it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. If it walks like a racist and it talks like a racist, then it is a racist.
The president's favorite breakfast show, Amused.
You can't leave fast enough. I'm sure that Nancy Pelosi would be very happy to quickly work out free travel arrangements. This tweet that you're just seeing now is clearly going to get, I think, a lot of discussion.
Someone's feeling very comedic today.
They can leave, they can stay, but they should love our country.
Donald Trump, though, is unrepentant, as America is again engulfed in a row of his design. And that probably suits him just fine.
It's my opinion they hate our country. And that's not good. It's not acceptable. Thank you very much, everybody.
A dubious honor for Donald Trump, who's become only the third U.S. president in history to be impeached by the House of Representatives. Mr. Trump hit back at a rally in Michigan, telling supporters that the radical left in Congress was consumed with envy and rage.
Article 1 is adopted.
A flash of restraint to her party. There would be no Democrat gloating.
Adoption of Article 2.
But Nancy Pelosi had got her man. Impeached on 2 counts of abuse of power and obstruction.
Article 2 is adopted.
As Pelosi slammed the gavel down,
the 45th President of the United States,
Donald Trump took to the stage at a rally in Michigan, and a split-screen moment that only he could conjure.
Oh, I think we have a vote coming in. So we got every single Republican voted for us? Whoa.
He tries to spin impeachment as a moment of unity, something to cheer. But as he read aloud the votes from an aide holding up a board in the crowd...
Thank you, Haley. Great job.
He started to lower the tone, at one point even mocking a Michigan congressman who died this year.
Then you have this Dingell. You know Dingell from Michigan?
Because his wife, a Democrat, had dared vote for Trump's impeachment.
Maybe he's looking up, I don't know.
A new low even for him. Hundreds of US troops arrive in Kuwait yesterday, an immediate response force, the US said, amid heightened concerns about Iranian aggression. Hours later, 3 American rockets target Baghdad airport, killing Iran's most respected military leader, Qasem Soleimani. Before any official confirmation, President Trump tweeted, no words, just this. Then, minutes later, the first 6 words of the Pentagon's official statement, at the direction of the president. It went on to explain the justification. General Soleimani was actively developing plans to attack American diplomats and service members in Iraq and throughout the region. General Soleimani and his Quds force were responsible for the deaths of hundreds of American and coalition service members and the wounding of thousands more. The statement ends ominously. The strike was aimed at deterring future Iranian attack plans.
The risk of doing nothing was enormous.
The Secretary of State provided no evidence of those future attack plans, instead insisting the decision to assassinate Iran's most revered general might somehow de-escalate the tension.
We don't seek war with Iran, but we at the same time are not going to stand by and watch the Iranians escalate and continue to put American lives at risk without responding in a way that disrupts, defends, deters, and creates an opportunity to de-escalate the situation.
Other administrations had long identified Soleimani as a target but didn't act. PJ Crowley worked in President Obama's State Department.
This was a legitimate military target. And the president chose to take this action. The question is not whether it's politically motivated. The question is whether there's a strategy behind it.
Do you think it's likely that President Trump has thought this through in his head?
I think it's highly likely that this was a one-time, short-term action. You know, Soleimani is a bad hombre, let's take him out. He doesn't think 3 steps ahead. So I think that here's where we are.
And here's how we got here. President Trump announced the US would pull out of the Iran nuclear deal in 2018, adopting instead a strategy of maximum pressure with crippling sanctions. That summer, Soleimani addressed Trump's threats directly. We are near you where you can't even imagine. Come, we are ready. If you begin the war, we will end the war. You know that this war will destroy all that you possess. Even answering the president's Game of Thrones "sanctions are coming" meme with one of his own. I will stand against you. In May and June last year, the US blamed Iran for attacks on oil tankers in the Gulf. Iran then downed a US drone, and pulling back from the brink, President Trump called off a retaliatory strike at the 11th hour. And this week, the US embassy in Baghdad came under siege, attacked by supporters of an Iran-backed militia. Protesters part like a human wave as a tanker hurtles towards them in Minneapolis. Demonstrators chase the driver down, swarm the cab and eventually drag him out. They had been demonstrating peacefully, the highway supposed to be closed off. Minutes later, the police arrive, pepper spray at the ready, and the driver, incredibly relatively unharmed, is arrested. As dozens of police and the National Guard rolled in, a mostly peaceful group dug in at a nearby petrol station.
Those of you in the parking lot surrounded, you are under arrest. Lay down on the ground now.
After the chaos of last night, the police are not taking any risks tonight. They've sectioned off a load of the protesters. They're arresting them and taking them away one by one. In all, about 150 were handcuffed and showed little resistance as they were lined up and boarded onto waiting police buses. Others managed to resist and vented anger that a peaceful protest had ended in mass arrest.
But for what? For what? For protesting and for fighting for justice, right? And this is in America, right? This is Minnesota. Welcome to Minnesota, baby!
You allow a tanker to drive through and almost kill us. How do you care? And then you spray mace at us when we're peacefully walking down the street doing nothing wrong.
Mothers, brothers that are black, that wake up scared to go outside every day, scared to get pulled over for speeding. You gonna die. That's scary. We don't want to be scared no more.
I cannot breathe. You just a grown.
That simmering fear reached boiling point after a video showed George Floyd, an unarmed black man, pleading for his life as a white police officer pressed his knee into his neck until the man suffocated and died. Yet in trying to quell the riots and fury that followed, many feel the police have shown the exact same brutality that fueled the protests in the first place.
This ain't doing nothing but making it worse. If one of them was just to come out right now and be like, we not this officer who on that video, he don't represent us. And we'll feel a little peacefully and we could protest and we could be peacefully about it, you know. But justice gonna be served. We're gonna be out here until we get all 4 officers. You know what I mean? We don't want just one. We want all 4.
Moments later, he tried to approach police, his hands raised in surrender, but was met with this. He retreated with no serious injury. The police chief in Minneapolis visited George Floyd's memorial yesterday, asked on camera in front of the brother of Mr. Floyd if it was right that only one of the 4 police officers had so far been arrested. He said,
"Silence and inaction, you're complicit. You're complicit. If there were one solitary voice that would have intervened and act, that's what I would have hoped for."
If he believes that, is it any wonder America is raging? Last night in Detroit, officers used tear gas to disperse crowds. And in Portland, Oregon, they threw stun grenades as protesters hurled fireworks in retaliation. In New York, they marched over the Manhattan Bridge, and small skirmishes with police ended with 2 of them kneeling in unity with the crowds. But the worst scenes, though, were in the nation's capital, where police fired tear gas as protesters burned cars and a building near the White House. And while Washington and America burned, with no public appeal for calm from the president, today he lashed out at state governors, telling them they were weak and needed to dominate the protesters to bring the violence to an end.
You have to dominate. If you don't dominate, you're wasting your time. They're going to run over. It's going to look like a bunch of jerks. You have to dominate.
Yet his outward show of strength, turn the lights out, take to Twitter and hide away in his bunker.
We have spent the summer reporting from protests across the country where thousands of people have marched demanding justice for the killing of black men and women at the hands of mostly white police officers. Well, that came to a head last night when demonstrators turned out across dozens of US cities. There was briefly some violence here last night, and the man who shot those 2 police officers has since been arrested and charged within 12 hours. And that for many underscores what they see as the big injustice here, that when harm is done to police, justice is swift. But when plainclothes police shoot and kill a black woman in her own home, it takes a grand jury 6 months to conclude that they did nothing wrong and that they were simply acting in self-defense. And a warning that some viewers may find some of the scenes in my report distressing.
There was no police body cam video from the night Breonna Taylor was shot by officers who burst into her home.
Shots fired, shots fired.
But at the protest ignited by the state's decision not to directly charge them for her death, the Louisville Police Department was streaming live on its Facebook page.
Got an officer down.
Officer down, they're backing officers out.
Officer down, take cover.
It would soon become clear there were 2 officers down. They were shot and wounded as they approached a large crowd half an hour before the citywide curfew would begin.
Both officers are currently undergoing treatment at University Hospital. One is in alert and stable. The other officer is currently undergoing surgery and stable.
It had been a long and emotional day of unrest, and not only in Louisville. In Seattle, an officer appeared to roll a bike over the helmet of a protester on the ground. And in Denver, a car drove into a small crowd.
Hey! Oh my God!
The woman it hit escaped with just a scraped wrist. But most of the demonstrations that broke out across the US were peaceful, march after march, all with the same message: justice for Breonna Taylor. A name that's come to epitomize America's summer of unrest. Her death a touchstone for those demanding an end to police brutality. And this was their turning point. Frustration and outrage that had been building since March, after protesting for 6 months since the hospital worker was shot dead in her own home by police in a botched drug raid. When those fighting for justice were told no officers would be charged over her death, they took to the streets.
We seem to have 2 justice systems in America, one for black America and one for white America. Nothing seems to say that Breonna mattered.
An hour after the curfew took effect and riot police move in to disperse the crowd.
This is the Louisville Metro Police Department. Under Kentucky state law, this is an unlawful assembly, and I command all persons so assembled here to immediately and peacefully disperse.
So you're not going to leave the streets this evening?
No, that's over.
The curfew's in place. They're clearly telling you to go.
That's fine. Our voices are still not heard. It's like no one's listening to us, so that makes me frustrated.
It don't matter though.
They're angry too.
Because all the judges, all the lawyers, not all of them, but most of them is part of their clique.
Now that no one is getting charged with stuff, that's only making us angrier. That's only making us want to do more stuff, want to stay out later, not listen to them and stuff. So,
Do you intend to leave?
No.
Tell me why not.
Because why should I leave when they don't respect my life? You know what I'm saying? Why should I respect the words that they say when I'm just another statistic to them? You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
And what about the grand jury verdict today? What's your response to that?
To be honest, I'm not surprised with the outcome because they've been doing this for years. And it goes deeper than this police system. It goes all the way down to the White House, even deeper than that.
The police are moving in behind me, as you can see, slowly trying to push the protesters back. For now, it seems to be working. The small number that are still here are being pushed around that corner there, but they are staying, they are still digging in.
We followed them as they moved quickly to cut the demonstrators off, rifles held aloft. The two lines of police then came together in a pincer and the protesters were eventually encircled.
So this is how it ends. They have got the protesters in there trapped behind me and they are picking them off one by one.
They had dared to hope that this time would be different, that the police would be held accountable for the death of Breonna Taylor, that the law would eventually come down on their side. The reality is, it didn't. Instead, the death of the 26-year-old black woman was described by officials as a tragedy, but not a crime.
Siobhan Kennedy in Kentucky. Well, Donald Trump came here this morning to join those paying their respects to Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the liberal Supreme Court justice who died last week. For 2 days now, people have been queuing to honour and say thank you to this extraordinary woman. But when they saw the president, many were furious he'd come. Democrats are enraged that Donald Trump intends to appoint a new conservative justice before the election, which may have profound consequences for America, especially on women's rights to abortion and the outcome of any election dispute. Now, the protests seen in Kentucky were echoed around the country, including here in Washington, as people marched chanting "No justice, no peace" in more than a dozen major cities. But what has really alarmed many people here was Donald Trump's refusal in a press conference to commit to a peaceful transition of power should he lose the election. It follows his repeated claims that there will be massive fraud with postal voting.
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster.
I understand that, but people are rioting. Do you commit to making sure that there's a peaceful transfer of power?
We want to get rid of the ballots, and we'll have a very peaceful. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation. The ballots are out of control. You know it, and you know who knows it better than anybody else? The Democrats know it better than anybody else.
Like a scene more reminiscent of a Hollywood movie, the superhero president touches down on the White House lawn. Having faced his demons, Captain COVID returns, triumphant to save the nation. That's the White House version, at least.
How are you feeling?
But left on the cutting room floor was the defining image of the moment, perhaps his presidency. He ascended the White House steps and, contagious with a deadly virus, removed his mask. For a photo op that he hoped would reframe this sorry saga of COVID chaos and recast him as the all-powerful and brave president.
And I learned so much about coronavirus. And one thing that's for certain, don't let it dominate you. Don't be afraid of it.
So says the man who had at least a dozen doctors attending him in a private suite and was administered medication that many Americans could not afford or even access. And what of the 210,000 who have already died from COVID-19?
For President Trump to say, don't be afraid of COVID, don't let it dominate your life. There are children who don't have parents now because of this virus.
Reshooting the scene for his own ad. I hold rallies. And I tell you to ignore masks, and I rip mine off as I vanquish the virus because I am a leader. Fear not, COVID. What a bunch of bullshit.
To hear the president, you'd think the virus was behind him, not that he's only 5 days into his diagnosis. Even his own doctor, who's been determined to paint a rosy picture of the president's health, admitted yesterday he wasn't out of the woods yet.
We're in a bit of uncharted territory when it comes to a patient that received the therapies he has so early in the course. So we're looking to this weekend. If we can get through to Monday with him remaining the same or improving, better yet, then we will all take that final deep sigh of relief.
But there's no sigh of relief among the growing number of those surrounding the president who've contracted the virus, thanks to the administration's cavalier attitude to COVID-19. Now including his press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany, and 2 of her staff. The president's personal assistant, his campaign manager, current and former senior aides Hope Hicks and Kellyanne Conway, as well as close advisor Chris Christie. At least 3 White House reporters and an unconfirmed number of staffers. In addition, 3 Republican senators, the chairwoman of the Republican National Committee, 2 religious officials who attended Trump events, and at least 11 debate staff in Cleveland. His Democratic presidential rival Joe Biden was asked last night if the president should take the blame for his predicament.
Polls that 65% of Americans think the president bears some responsibility for contracting this virus. Do you agree?
Anybody who contracts the virus by essentially saying masks don't matter, social distancing doesn't matter, I think is responsible for what happens to them.
No humility from Donald Trump, though. He says his packed, maskless rallies were almost a requirement of his presidency.
As your leader, I had to do that. I knew there's danger to it, but I had to do it. Nobody that's a leader would not do what I did. And I know there's a risk, there's a danger, but that's okay.
Implying that the minute he gets a green light, or perhaps even before, he'll go out and do exactly the same again.
Shocked and shamed, 4 years after Trump was sworn in as America's commander-in-chief, his rioting supporters trashed the citadel of his democracy in the dying days of his presidency.
As night fell on a stunned Washington, heavily armed officers moved in, forcibly pushing back protesters who defiantly dug in outside the Capitol.
The curfew has just passed. Police have now been replaced by the National Guard. They're tapping their shields and they're giving the same message: move back.
These officers are breaking their oaths. They're allowing an election to be stolen, and they're backing up the people that are stealing it.
We're just up there making our voices heard, and then they start throwing tear gas.
Others defended a president who just hours earlier had publicly urged his supporters to march on the Capitol and fight back.
Didn't he tell them to be here?
Did he tell us to be here?
He encouraged us to be here to support our country.
Exactly.
We're
going to walk down to the Capitol because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength.
USA! USA!
This is what that strength looked like. Having reached the steps of the Capitol and with Trump's words ringing in their ears, the marauding masses pressed ahead, scrambling past the scaffolding erected for the inauguration and eventually breaking into the Capitol building itself. With police guarding the center of the world's biggest democracy, seemingly caught off guard and unable to hold them back. As the events played out on live TV to stunned audiences around the world, the angry mob infiltrated the corridors and offices, as inside the ceremony to certify Joe Biden's election victory was brought to an abrupt halt.
And it will stand in recess until the call of the chair.
At one point, some even tried to break into the chamber.
Everybody stay down! Get down!
Forcing police to barricade the door with furniture, handguns cocked. In the melee, a protester was shot by police and later died. 3 others too lost their lives.
But you have to go home now. We have to have peace.
Holed up safely inside the White House, the president praised his supporters as special people as he urged calm through gritted teeth, but still used the same incendiary language he'd invoked hours earlier to egg them on.
There's never been a time like this where such a thing happened, where they could take it away from all of us, from me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election.
The video tweet was later removed and the president blocked from Twitter for 12 hours for severe violations of its policies. The protesters were eventually overcome, and with the capital finally secure, lawmakers reconvened. Many, still numb by the day's events, withdrew their earlier objections to certifying Joe Biden as America's next president.
However, the events that have transpired today have forced me to reconsider, and I cannot now in good conscience object to the certification.
One staunch Trump supporter hoped his 11th hour repudiation of the president would hold sway.
And when it's over, it is over. It is over.
And at 3:44 a.m., it was over.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will be the president and the vice president according to the ballots that have been given to us.
A solemn Vice President Mike Pence gavelled the session, in normal times a pro forma affair, to a weary end. Soon after, with his Twitter account blocked, it was left to one of Trump's aides to post a statement that rightly should have been issued 9 weeks earlier. Even though I totally disagree with the outcome of the election and the facts bear me out, nevertheless, there will be an orderly transition on January the 20th. That it came to violent protesters storming the heart of US democracy will go down as one of the most ugly and profound moments in American history. A day later, the Capitol only now afforded the protection it should have had 24 hours earlier.